Hey Bodgers, gonna take you for a little drive and we'll have a little bit of a chat, shall we? So I've noticed that just lately there's been a little bit of talk around conscription. Sorry if I get distracted while I'm driving, Bodgers, I am with you. So yeah, just lately, obviously there's been a little bit of chat. There's some former military fella, former being the operative word, chances are he now works for Raytheon or some other military firm, and he, let's put that on. Still on a private road, don't worry, officer. So yeah, this former military fella, he says chances are if we go to war with the Ruskies, then we're going to have a conscription. So it spread a little bit of panic, hasn't it, amongst the Gen Z and the millennials. Because they ain't had to see that before, you know, their country going to war with somebody else. Not on the big scale, you know. Obviously we've been in Afghanistan and things, but that was really quite remote, really, you know what I mean? But especially the Gen Z, they've not really had to deal with that. Impending doom, impending war. I've no doubt they're going to take us into a war, you know, there's too much chatter about it, isn't there? But, yeah, conscription. 1957, right? This is how far back we're going. Nearly 70, 80 years. Is that right? 50, whatever. 1957, the government commissioned the military to do an assessment of the compulsory service. You know where you'd have to do like 18 months, 2 years in the military after the war. And this study that got commissioned found that warfare had changed. Weapons got developed over the years to the point where fit men weren't really needed. Didn't have to do their national service because weapons had changed, the theatre of war had changed, you know. Into the 50s you're talking nuclear arms and aircraft that could go longer distances and things. So they decided, right, well, we don't really need national service anymore. So in 1960 they scrapped it. Now if you talk to your dad or your granddad, chances are he still went into about 1963. But after 1963, nobody had to do national service, and part of the rewrite of the law to do away with national service meant that nobody could be conscripted. Nobody's going to be forced to go into the military, right? So it's illegal. Nobody's going to get conscripted in the UK or any of our dependencies to fight a war. But because this, shall we say, former military gentleman opened his flaps and started waffing, Gen Z started to panic. That lad's 15. Otter Junior, you'll be familiar. He don't really give a shit either way, you know what I mean? So I explained to him what the situation was, because some of his friends was asking the question. So, you know, I just explained to him what national service was. His granddad did it. His granddad did it in Egypt, guarding the Suez Canal for 2 years. Some of the best years of his life, as he said. But, yeah. So it became illegal to conscript anybody in 1960. And that situation hasn't changed. you think about it, since then we've had several wars we've been involved with alongside America and without America. In the case of the Falklands, different story. So yeah, it ain't gonna happen, this here conscription. But it got me thinking, if circumstances was changed, right, how many Gen Z, same age as Bodger Jr., would actually go to war if there was a conscription? Now, they are talking about, right, just as a side note, Boris Johnson, little bit of a thing he put out as he's walking his dog out in the countryside. You can find it if you Google it. He said about a citizens' army, get some sort of military training, do consider it if you're young, and all the benefits that it could reap. Now, I ain't knocking anybody who goes into the military. I've got friends who did, and obviously through museum I've got to know people who have. And you know, when I was a younger man, if that situation ever arose, I probably would have stepped up myself, to be honest. But military service of some description was trying to teach a bit of discipline, wasn't it? You didn't get half the crimes that you get now, back in the 50s and into the early 60s. But we kind of lost our way a bit, and maybe discipline isn't really taught to the same extent. So, you know, it might not be too bad an idea if it was possible. But they're talking about this citizens' army. As you might have seen in my last video about bayonets, I referenced Corporal Jones from Dad's Army, the Home Guard as it was then, and that's basically the kind of thing that they're talking about. But instead of people who couldn't go to war and who were too old to go to war, so if you was older than, I think it's 40, you couldn't get conscripted, whatever, you went into the Home Guard. And that's kind of what they're talking about. But it wouldn't be as, I mean, this is all pie in the sky, because it's not going to happen, right? Or it's certainly going to be a bloody slim chance of having some sort of Home Guard today. Sorry about the dodgy camera angle, by the way. I forgot the sticky pad for the windscreen. But anyway, I digress. So they're talking about some sort of Home Guard. We'll call it Dad's Army from now on, just to, you know, kind of keep the algorithms away, right? So they want everyone to join this here Dad's Army, right? Or as many young people as they can, to learn military service. Learn how to use a weapon, how to be defensive, and all that kind of stuff. Now, the thing is, right, Russia, they have a lot of gear, right? Don't doubt it. And a lot of people that can throw at it. They still have a military service where you serve so many years in the military before you leave and you go about your business, right? They have a lot of people that can draw on, and they've got a lot of gear, but a lot of their gear is outdated, right, compared to what America and Britain has. The thing is, they're making out that Russia is going to invade a NATO country or a European country, right? They ain't going to stop in the Ukraine. They've got what they want. They've got that. They've got all that region. The residents there think of themselves as Russian. Ukrainians have been bombing the hell out of them since 2014, and Zelensky came into power. So they've got that, and they've kind of secured it. And there's still a lot of fighting. A lot of people are ending up dead. And it isn't often I agree with somebody like, I don't know, Trump, whoever, right? Don't really like the fella, but sometimes he says some decent stuff. Too many people are dying. We need to put a stop to it, right? All we have to do is get around the table, sign a bit of paper and say, right, well, you have that region where all those people think of themselves as Russian. And all this would stop. Sorry, a bit wobbly. So anyway, Al Bozza and the other MPs all think, sorry, I'm going to sneeze, all think it'd be a good idea to have a dad's army. Right? They aren't interested in going across Europe, but even if they did, right? Even if they did, so A, we ain't got conscription, B, they ain't going to do a dad's army, and C, the Russians aren't involved with the rest of NATO and everything else. That's too much for them to chew, right? But if all those circumstances did come to fruition, how many of these Gen Zs, people born after 2000, would actually want to take part in a war, defend their country? National pride has gone from Britain as far as the newer generations after me, Gen X I suppose, are concerned. There isn't really a pride. I mean, you get kids that come to the museum, right? They're just looking at old stuff. You know, this is from 1945 or 1940. To them, it's history, which it is. But to them, it's like ancient history. The hell, the 1970s are ancient history to them. So they don't get first fired up about civic pride and all that sort of stuff. They're more bothered about their TikTok and their Facebook and all that sort of stuff. Watching YouTube. But then you get the attitudes as well. So since the 60s, when national service finished, feminism has come along. There's nothing wrong with, you know, all women and men should be equal. Not arguing, right? Okay, Lady Bodgers, I'm not arguing. When it comes to equality, and when it comes to a dad's army, maybe it should be a mum's army as well. You know, if you want the men to do it, then you've got to do it. But what I've noticed in a few videos I've watched and things is that the ladies born post 2000 don't really want to do that. I think that's a man's role. A recent study has said there's been some discrepancy, some disparity between the attitudes of females post 2000, born post 2000, and the gentlemen that are born post 2000, as far as feminism and equal opportunities goes. But that's a different subject. Might do a video on that, we'll see. So good for the goose, good for the gander. But then we've got other influences, haven't we? So how do I put this? There's certain people who, shall we say, dye their hair blue. You know what I mean? Sometimes they don't decide when they need to go for a Jimmy Riddle which door to go through. How many of them are going to stand up? How many of them would stand forward, bare arms against an aggressor for king and country? Not many. How many of them would be effective against an enemy? Don't know. Probably not many of them either. But I don't know, to me it's things have changed. The dad's army would never work now. And besides, this study back in 1957, warfare had changed back then. We don't need so many people, boots on the ground. See if I can straighten up a bit here, Bodgers. So yeah, you know, if it had changed back then, it's only, even today, you know, you've got drones and things. There's somebody who's sat on an RAF base in deepest, darkest Lincolnshire, and he's flying a drone thousands of miles away in wherever. You know, he doesn't even have to be there on the front line. He doesn't have to be even sat in the cockpit. He's just flying this bloody thing, and it drops a bomb, and it takes out a target. Blah blah blah. The 6th generation of fighter planes. You're going to have one plane that's in command and a few drones around it. No, I'm not talking drones with propellers. These are proper bloody aircraft, but without the cockpit. And these things are going to go doing the bombing. Even the bloke in the fighter aircraft, he ain't going to be going anywhere near the front. That's up to these planes that he's controlling. Then you got cyber warfare and stuff like that. You know, propaganda. So warfare's changed, you know. If it wasn't relevant back in 57, 1960, then it certainly ain't going to be relevant now, is it? You know, Dad's army isn't required. And I suppose what I'm getting to, Bodgers, right, is the fear, the scaremongering that certain media outlets, shall we say, are putting forward. But you've got to take notice of who it is that's saying it. So this former military fella, right, he's on Sky News or some sort of Sky channel, and he says about this conscription thing, and all the kiddywinks, well, they just panic, don't they? Oh, I'm not going to fight a war. Why should I fight a war for my country? It ain't done out for me. And I get it, you know, they've known no other government for the past 15, 16 years besides a Conservative government, and maybe things ain't been as rosy as they could be, but then you look at the alternative. So when the current lot came in, they left a letter saying there's no money, and that was their own Chancellor. I think they're all as bad as each other in that Westminster Palace. We know who the last person was that went in there with good intentions. So, yeah, I get it. They don't want to follow what the government tell them, which is good, right? Never do what the government tell you. Do the opposite. I do. I did when everyone got the sniffles. You know, didn't take any notice then. We got a lot of flack for it, to be fair. But as it turns out, now I don't have any sort of heart problems that a lot do. And I think some people are a ticking time bomb. Again, a separate issue. Some of these I might talk about on my Rumble channel. Go to Rumble, download the app, sign up, don't cost you anything. And then Google Bearded Bodger. You'll find my channel. I might talk a bit more about that sort of thing. Try not to be too controversial on YouTube. But back to my point. So these kids are starting to panic a bit. They've seen this here older person who's former military and now probably works for Raytheon or Boeing, or is a consultant to the government or something. Either way. And he's come along and said this, and these kids are panicking. So that's why Bodger Jr. came to me and said, Dad, can you just explain this so I can talk to my mates about it? Give them the facts, because you don't always get the facts, do we, from government. So hopefully he's put him and his mates' minds at rest, you know. But it's the way that the media are portraying all this, how we've got to go to war with them. Well, they aren't threatening a NATO country. He's not interested in going to a NATO country. If anything, he wants the NATO countries away from him, because we signed an agreement with Mr. Putin, or Gorbachev, whoever it was at the time, I can't remember, to say, in 1992, we signed this thing to say, look, NATO and Russia, we're never going to get a bordering country to Russia, right? You don't need to worry. But what's happened? Kind of broken that promise. All the countries there that are down the side of Russia, they've all joined NATO, Poland and all them. So the only one left was Ukraine, and they was making noises saying, well, we want to be a part of NATO. Just as a side note, there's a lot of pipelines for oil and gas and stuff that run from Russia through the Ukraine into Europe, powering Germany and a few other countries. Interesting, that, isn't it? Not related in any way. So yeah, these so the government that Ukraine had back in 2013, very libertarian, very democratic, but they didn't kind of like that, the Americans and the United Nations. So he says, well, we'll depose him and his government and put somebody else in. Who can we put in? Who could we possibly put in? Well, I was watching an entertainment show, says one of them. And there's this fella. And he's doing impressions of Beyonce. Put another ring on it. They're in high heels and tights and things. And I've seen him on another show. And he's playing the piano. But not with his fingers. With his other little finger. So we'll put him in charge. Yeah, that's a good qualification. But he's an actor, isn't he? So he'll do whatever he does for the role. So they stuck this fella in, and they said to him, those Russians there that are living in your country that border Russia, they're trying to put a stop to certain goods coming through your country. They could stop it at any time. All they've got to do is turn a valve, and then the rest of Europe won't get any oil or gas or anything like that. So this is what we want you to do about it. We want you to fire stuff over and just let them know at their place. We know they want to be Russian, but they're living in your country. So I want you to go bombing them. Russia was already running the place more or less, because they weren't getting anything from the Ukrainian government. Because your little piano playing, high heel wearing fella won't give them anything. So why would they want to be part of Ukraine? So he goes and forms an army and starts bombing the hell out of them. And these Russians, well, they say, look, Mother Russia, we've been living quietly, we ain't been bothering anybody, and now all of a sudden we're getting bombed. Nobody knows behind it, but we're getting bombed for no reason. So the Russians, they have this little exercise, strategic, whatever the hell it was he called it, and he went in there, took over the area. Well, that's as far as it went. He had no intention of taking all of Ukraine. I think it's time that, you know, we started telling the truth here. America, Russia, NATO countries, you know, it's all a bit of a mess, isn't it? But we went back on our promise in 1992, you see. We said we'd leave them alone, wouldn't go anywhere near them, wouldn't get into countries that are bordering. So you can kind of see it. I'm not saying what they've done is right, okay? You negotiate. You always go to the table first and try and talk these things out. You don't just start bombing the hell out of people. Either side. But they didn't, and we're in the mess we're in now. So they try and isolate Russia, and then that goes and affects the people in Russia, your average Joe like me and you. Can't buy goods that get imported like they usually would. It all kind of falls apart really, because people don't talk. Like I've said to you bodgers, anybody wants to talk, they're welcome to come and message me, whatever. I'll have a talk to them about anything. So yeah, they won't talk, and it's escalating, and it's going to get out of hand. More people are going to die. What's the end goal? You see, the thing is, it ain't your governments that run the country. It's the big businesses. And I know I sound like some sort of conspiracy theorist and some sort of nut job, right? I know. But when you look into it, two main companies that own everything, right, in the world, somehow has links to it. Vanguard and BlackRock. And they've already signed up with the Ukrainian government, as BlackRock, to say we're going to help you rebuild after the war. So we'll lend you all this money, and then you pay us back. So they're going to profit from it. So it won't just be the companies like Raytheon, Boeing, and all these other companies that make armaments and things that will make more armaments and make more money. Be them two companies, Vanguard and BlackRock. At their behest, our governments make these decisions. Now this one's probably going to get demonetised, taken down, I'll probably get a strike for this video. But I think it's about time people knew the truth, you know what I mean? And it is complicated, it's hard to keep up with who did what and when. I get it. You can't just focus in on what one lot are telling you, like the BBC or Sky or whatever. Especially when they get some muppet who's financed by one of these companies saying, oh, we're going to have conscription. We're going to get all the 20-year-olds to come and fight for us. And then all those are 20 and younger start to panic. Because they don't know no different. Keeping you in fear, trying to keep you asleep, tell you this stuff so you believe it, and it ain't always necessarily the truth, is it? So yeah, my dad's army, no, it's not going to happen. We won't be sticking it to the fuzzy wuzzies at all. Even though they don't like it up them. Stay awake, folks. Don't believe everything you see on the news. Do what I did. Cancel your TV licence. Hey, it's 160 odd quid a year. For what? Well, you get his bloody repeats at Christmas time. Just seek out the truth, listen to what folks are saying on both sides, left, right, pro-Russia, pro-Europe, pro-whoever, right? Including all the stuff that's going on in Israel and the Gaza Strip and all that. Listen to both sides, somewhere in the middle will be the truth. You know, all the data is out there. It's just that sometimes the government don't always go and promote that data that they've come up with. Warfare has changed. We don't need boots on the ground as much as we once did. It was true in '57, it was true in 2004, and it'll be true in 2027. manage to destruct each other with the press of a button and bring it all to an end. Scary thought, innit? But it's where we're at, I suppose. Anyway, time I brought this video to an end, rapidly approaching my destination. My views are my own, not those of my employer. I suppose I've got to say that, haven't you? Weird. But anyway, there we go. I'll see you next week, Bodgers. Hopefully. And as always, look after yourselves, look after those around you. Because if you do that, and we're all doing the same thing, some of these wars might not happen. Because we communicate, we talk to each other and we get on. We have far more in common with our enemies than we don't. Their governments are trying to screw them just as much as ours. See you later, Bodgers.